Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Ionut Hrinca. I'm manager of architecture and tooling team in ING Software Development Center. Marian already presented the development center, so I don't think it's necessary to present it anymore. Actually, not a long time ago, a good friend of mine told me that laziness is the mother of all inventions. And having a small look behind in my career, I realized that, reflecting on it, I realized that it's actually true. Because I started 11 years in ING developing on a very old platform with using actually PuTTY over using a remote connection, using PuTTY and VI to modify the code and configuration with no access to any build tools or deployment tools or test tools available for that platform. So I was also quite annoyed about all the manual tasks that I was doing around my development, around the creation of new features in that. So I always looked around to see how can I get rid of those manual tasks, repetitive and with actually no value to the full development process. And also looking making a small research, so actually a small Google on laziness is the mother of all invention, I realized that it's quite common in the developers world. So I have a question. Which of you recognizes the lady in the picture? Raise your hand. Oh, sorry. Yeah, she's Grace Hopper. Actually, she was the inventor of the first compiler, or the compiler. She did it in 1950s. She actually did it because she considered herself lazy. That's why he stated here that she was lazy, and she hoped that the programmer will return being actually a mathematician. She had a PhD in mathematics. And actually, while she was inventing this, all the developers were afraid that everybody will be able to code, yeah, and there will be no place for them anymore. But actually, yeah, looking today, I think this turned to be false. So also for those of you who are interested in history, she's known for the term debugging, yeah, because while working on her computer, she actually found a moth in one of the relays, and yeah, this is the documentation of her debugging. But actually, in this journey of trying to get rid of all this manual task and try to automate everything that is not adding value to our process, I found out around 2011 about continuous delivery. And if we want to define it, actually, we can say that it's an ability to get changes. Either there are new features, bug fixes, or experiments that we want to do into the hand of user in a safe, quick, and sustainable way. So this is nothing new. Actually, it's a set of good practices that are common. This includes continuous integration and automating everything that can be automated. And if you want to start executing it and wonder how you're gonna do it, actually you need to start with developing on the main line. Yeah? Forget about the branching, forget about developing in isolation without others knowing what you are doing, and get rid of all the integration hell that you might encounter when you merge your code into the integration branch. Then you need to automate the rest, which includes the build stage, yeah? And in the build stage you also need to take care of the automation of the unit test. But not only, so all the test actually needs to be automated, including the acceptance test. Therefore, also the acceptance criteria needs to be defined in such a way that it can be transformed into tests that can be automated. Then you need to be sure that you get rid of all the handovers, because usually you'll find that there is the development team and the ops teams, and now we are here at the DevOps stage, and these two come together, so we need to take care of automating the deploy and the release processes. Then for each of our stage, we need to collect feedback, and we need to use this feedback as soon as possible. So for example, if the build fails, we need to know about it and in order to fix it quickly, because the others might depend on it. And also we need to be sure that our architecture is transformed and adjusted in a way that allows continuous delivery. This mainly relates to the fact that each deployment unit should be independent, should be able to deploy it independently from the others. And while doing this, you need to make sure that you don't break the upstream and the downstream. At the heart, let's say the heart of the continuous delivery is the continuous delivery pipeline, which is actually a set of filters. And that assures, and its role, actually, it's not to prove that your build is ready to go to production. It's exactly the opposite. Yeah? Its role is to demonstrate that the build is not ready by trying to break it out in any case possible. Yeah? Either through the different test phases. For example, if we take the test automation, and when the test one of the tests fails, actually you need to get feedback on it, and you also need to understand what actually you need to do. So for example, in the acceptance test fail, you need most likely, because already the unit test failed, most likely you either have a bug in the one of your unit tests, or you don't have that unit test at all. So you need to be sure that you make that one, to shift left, and know as soon as possible when you have a problem with your code. And once everything is ready, let's say no fault are found, then the pipeline has nothing to do with it, but let your software to be released to production. So yeah, it's cool, huh? But it's not for us. It won't work, huh? Because, and the main reasons, based on a study that Just Humble did, are that we are heavily regulated. We are not building websites. We have too much legacy, and we don't trust our people. And guess what? We are an ING, and we are a bank. We are heavily regulated by all the organisms in this world. Locally, but also with the European Union, especially after the crisis in 2008. And we are now using continuous delivery for about 1,400 application or deployment units, how we call them. And we actually deploy per month around 25,000 deployments. So it's not valid, huh? Then if we are looking at the second one, we are not building websites. Actually, we are using it for everything. We are using it for database deployments. We are using it for the middleware components. We are even using it for 19th core banking systems, that I was talking about at the beginning of the presentation. So it's possible. It's possible even if you have a legacy. And if you have the legacy, actually you can even wrap it around to be able to test it, or create your own testing framework, or create your own tools if the supplier is not providing to you all these features. Too much legacy already, I think it's demonstrated by the fact that we included that 90s technology into the pipeline, and we don't trust our people. This is totally wrong, because when they say this, they say that there are controls that they want to make sure of, and when they are asked how these controls are performed, they say during the release, on the release day, we check if we have all the documentation, we check if all the compliance checks are there, if the status of the change is in the proper state. Yeah, but guess what? All of this can be automated, and being automated, you really make sure that this happens, and you don't have a small human error at 3 a.m. in the morning, deploying tirely in production, and that you miss that check, and you go with something that you don't want to go to production. Looking at the actual reasons, there are mainly two. So one is the organizational culture, and the other one is the architecture. Because mainly on the architecture, there is so much tightly coupling between the application that you cannot deploy on something without breaking the upstream or downstream. We will take the first one to have a look on it. And if we look to a traditional enterprise that we have, and most likely you experience the same in your organization, there are some business units. Yeah, these are the guys that usually during weekends they go to a golf, and they come up there with ideas for new products or new services, and then they bring it back at work to make it happen, make it reality for the customer. Then, if you look, most of the organizations are having their PMO, so they execute changes inside the company, so new products, new services via some small projects by forming ad hoc teams to make actually to take that idea and make it happen. So actually some of them says that, yeah, we are developing this project in an agile way, and we are working in small sprints, and we are delivering, and so on. But actually, if you look, everything, also in the organization, you have the operation part, and these are actually the guys that run your service or your system, including all the components. And guess what? Once the project is finished and everybody is happy with the results and how it works, it ends up in their garden, in the ops area. This handover, it's pretty hard. Usually it's quite disruptive, and it happens during the night or during the weekends, so outside working hours, because it's a huge pile of work that is actually getting released to production. And this is actually the moment when it reaches the user and the full functionality. But if we look and compare their agile way of working to the waterfall way, the classic way, actually what they are doing, they are creating a business case. Yeah, then they create a small design on the solution, and yeah, they work in an agile way and they're developing the solution in small sprints. And usually there is one to make sure that everything, so all the pieces work together. So this is a huge sprint, I would say, including also the quality check. And there's a huge fight between the developers and the ops for putting the development in production. And there you'll see that either the release forms are not clear enough, or there is misunderstanding between them, or even worse, the configuration of the production environment is totally different than the one on the test environments. So you know the saying that it works on my computer, yeah. So this is the main, but it doesn't work in production. So it's no value yet. So if you look, actually what they are executing is the so-called water scrum fall, because the scrum, it's only a small part in the middle. And actually the lead time from idea to the hands of user is quite high, and actually it's the same. So definitely in the DevOps area, DevOps days, the company should change the way it's organized. So there should be teams, yeah, built around products and services that they are offering, and those teams should be cross-functional. So this means that you have both IT and both business guys inside, and they are in charge of. I have a problem with the technical problem. They're in charge of actually building, maintaining, and improving, and most important, and I'm quite curious how many of you heard of decommissioning of a service or retiring of a service. Can you raise your hand if you know what it's about? Yeah? Okay, how many of you seen it actually happening? So once, okay, so we have 3 hands. Amazing, huh? So actually, the problem is that the software, once it's released, here it stays like forever. So something needs to change, and actually one of the things that need to happen is that the infrastructure should be actually as a service. Yeah? So the teams should be able to build on top of this platform or infrastructure as a service. So it should not be any more handover. We took that idea in ING, and we actually took the DevOps to the next level. So we created the so-called Biz DevOps. And actually, we are organized right now in, so the teams are organized in so-called squads, in which you'll find business people, you'll find developers, yeah, from the whole stack, and you also you can find ops, yeah, depending on the service that they are doing. That might be the case that they are more of one and more or the other. There are multiple tribes being able to deliver to the customer. So, for example, here we have the mortgage service, and the tribe is led by a so-called tribe lead, and his role is mainly to interface. Is the main interface with the other tribes, and also he's in charge of the budget. And of course, we have a small agile coach that help the teams. But actually, their work cannot be optimum, let's say, unless they use automation. And for this, we use continuous delivery. And we started the journey in 2013 with creating, so we pushed teams to create their own continuous delivery pipeline, and they did it. They did it pretty well, and they were able to deliver more quickly and more efficient. But what we identified is that each team implemented it in their own way. Yeah? So there was a big overlap in operation task, and what was very important for us, it was that there was no communication, so no knowledge sharing between the teams with this approach. So we said, let's do it a little bit different. Let's try to create actually continuous delivery as a service. So what our aim was actually to create a common set of tools, yeah, and also processes that can be available on demand. And this way, we can enable developers to focus on the value creation only, and to experiment their any idea, and they can experiment it to production, because we can deliver a few times a day if we want. And what's most important, it's collaboration between the teams. Collaboration on the platform that they are developing, but also on the way of working, on the continuous delivery way. If we look inside what the pipeline is about, it's about automation 5 stages. So the first stage is the coding, then automation of the build stage, and automation of deployment, test, and also the release. This is mainly a toll gate, the last part. At the very basic basis of the pipeline stands a portal through which the teams can register themselves. They can apply for, they can request new assets in the pipeline, and each stage that is automated actually sends events to an event bus, and all this data is aggregated and collected and displayed here in the portal. So you can see also metrics and analytics of how the team is performing, and so you can see what area you can improve. The main entry, let's say, main input for the pipeline is the code and configuration. And the configuration I'm referring both to application configuration, but also environment configuration. Because what we like to do in ING, it's actually we like to do Phoenix deployments. So actually we delete everything, yeah, from the server that we are deploying on it, application and configuration, and then we apply the configuration in the application. So this way we get rid of that saying that it worked on my computer, because exactly the same as it is deployed in development, it is also in production. So it should work, yeah, unless the hardware is the difference. But we try to use infrastructure as a service, so it should be the same. Then we automate the build stage, and here actually we created the so-called stateless build server. So this stateless build server, it's a set of tools around Jenkins that runs in Docker containers in the ING private cloud. Then everything that is built, so all the artifacts during the build stage are pushed into an artifact repository, and we chose Artifactory for this. And also during the build stage, a new deployment plan is created, and we use orchestrator for a deployment orchestrator. It's Noleo, or how it is now called, CA release automation. So we make sure that actually we have a plan, a deployment plan for each build. So we make sure that in the DT, A, and P, we actually deploy exactly the same thing for a specific build. Then we put at disposal to our teams a set of test containers. So actually images, Docker images that on which and the users can use them as to build their own test container images. So by putting all their test automation frameworks and scripts to run it. So we have two type of them. So we have the confidence check containers and also the functional test containers. And once the test is executed and finished for all stages, we actually have a toll gate. So actually this is where we trust our people, because we ensure by the pipeline that all the compliance checks are performed, all the code scanning is within limits and comply with the policies that we have, and all other controls like having a change, being approved by an asset owner, and so on. So once all these are met, automatically the code goes to production. So these are some metrics from our pipeline, or our usage of the pipeline. So currently we have more than 150 teams in ING. So ING, I'm referring here to the whole ING in 7 countries. They are in different stages of onboarding and using of the pipeline, and we have about 200 teams that actually use it all the way to production. And the adoption is quite quick, because we have an adoption of about 30 to 50 actually applications that or deployment units that go all the way to production with the pipeline. So yeah, you can see the trend, how it is for the 1 year. So we reach about 1,400 applications. And these are the deployments for a month. So as you can see, we have between 20,000 and 25,000 deployments per month. If you make a small calculation, actually you can see that we are deploying at least once in a half day one application to production. So with this frequency. For some are higher, so they're deploying a few times a day. Some are a little bit less, but this is also about where they are in the stage of adopting this new way of working. So actually, this is our current state of our journey in continuous delivery, and I hope I get you inspired to adopt and tailor your tailor the DevOps culture and continuous delivery to your organization, so we can deliver all better services faster, frequently, safe, and in a sustainable way to our customers. Thank you. Questions?
You said you started in 2013. How did it take? How much time did it take to finish migration?
We are continuously improving, so we are in a state. So actually, 2 years ago the pipeline was really stable, and we started onboarding all the teams. We started in 2013, but in 2013 it was the initial phase where each team creates its own pipeline, and we identified that. And end of 2014, there was a mandate from the strategic board that says continuous delivery is quite important. We should make it as a service, and we should make it stable. So yeah, it takes years to implement, also the culture, but also the tools and the process to automate the processes. But for us, it took about 2 years to make it as a service.
Is there any specific reason for choosing Noleo over other automation tools like Chef or Puppet or Ansible or?
Exactly, this is a hot topic that everybody says. Why Noleo and not somebody else, something else? What I like about continuous delivery, it's not about the tool, it's actually about the process, and make sure that you automate it. And you can automate it using the best-in-class tool right now, and you can do it, with also a tool that is average. In my opinion, Noleo it's not the best tool, but actually this was a starting point when we started our journey, and we invested a lot on that. It's not a burden for us right now to change. Of course, there are better tools to orchestrate this. But it's nice because it's visual, and it's really easy to use, and the learning curve is quite steep. Yeah? And if you take Ansible, it takes time to understand a little bit the philosophy, and also you need quite skilled guys to master it. And what we did, and that's why I say that the tool is not so important, we try to create generic deployment processes. So there are actually 3 stages inside the deployment process. It's the init stage, is the actual deployment stage, which is specific to the technology we are deploying on it. And then it's the post-deployment stage, which is mainly related to the automation in updating the CMDB and all this stuff. So for a team that onboards it, they should be able to understand the process, because if something goes wrong, they need to know what and how and to fix it and what to do. And this way we keep it, let's say, we give less work to the guys to automate, because you already automated in a standard way for it. And it was a trade-off, because flexibility and generic, but yeah, it works. It works. On the right.
Hi, I was wondering, how did you end up with this final flow? Was like a team or something that merged it?
Yeah, it's a global effort. Everything started in Netherlands with a core team initially, and now we have teams that are working in a community way. So they are working more like the Apache community. We have teams in Netherlands, we have teams in Belgium, we have team in Romania, in our center that developed this. There is also a team in Poland and also one in Germany. So yeah, it's an effort that is spread across the globe. And actually, for developing this pipeline, we also have our own pipeline. So there is, we call it CD square, so it's actually continuous delivery for the continuous delivery pipeline. And if we change something in the flow, we make sure that we automate all the tests and the deployment, and so that we make sure that we don't impact all those 850 teams that are using it.
In case of issues on production, do you do rollback or you roll forward?
Yeah, so since we most likely we do Phoenix deployments, In case of a failure, one of the steps in the deployment flow is actually saving what is the current the deployment version that we are deploying. And I told you in the presentation that we link a deployment to a specific build that contains also the full configuration and the application. So in case of an error, you have the manual option, what to do. So the smartest and the easiest is to rollback. And rollbacks actually means installing the last successful running version of your software. So the rollback by default is like this. There are some technologies that don't support this. So you cannot do Phoenix deployments on everything, for example, on some databases. Therefore, there is developed some small rollback mechanism that detects what actually is changing by applying this new deployment. It's saved in the rollback, and in case of failure, that is applied to fix it.
So, are there
We have a question there? Or no? No? Okay.
So I want to ask, how do you orchestrate between different technologies, or it's the same technology when you release? So if you have different platforms, what are you using for
Yeah.
orchestration?
So if I rephrase your question, actually you are referring if we have a huge release that actually we need to deploy multiple.
So you have a project that spans multiple applications that are multiple technologies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For this, as I told in the beginning, we used the isolation of our deployment. So we redesigned the architecture in such a way that we are able to deploy individually all components. And for this, we use different technologies like feature toggles, code branching, and stuff like this. So we make sure. But indeed, it's not all the teams are so mature and not all the deployments in all the systems in all the countries reach that stage yet. We are still doing this, and we are doing it by creating such called master release manifest. So it's an aggregation of few deployment types that are orchestrated and executed in a certain way. But actually, this is something that we want to get rid of, because we want to switch to more and more to the microservices, and then they are completely isolated and aligned with the domain that they are serving. And when you are deploying, you need to make sure that you don't break the upstream and the downstream, and that's it. And then with this, actually, you have the freedom to go whenever you want, how often you want to production without impacting anything, but just bringing functionality to production.
But if you have a specific time when you want to release, for example, the 1st of January, you need to put something in production that spans multiple technologies, so you have a fixed deadline.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So deployment is actually push of a button, and if you orchestrate all these, let's say, deployment types or applications to be deployed on 1st of January to be there, it's actually going to Noleo. Yeah, you hit the deploy on the wrapper. Actually, that includes all and it has a master release manifest that includes all the applications that you want to deploy with a specific configuration that applies from 1st of January. Hit the button, and they are all deployed in the sequence that you define in the release manifest. So no more huge document with the order or what needs to be happen, and somebody to say, okay, we deployed that, now you can start, and so on. No, everything should be push of a button and orchestrated in an automated way.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you so much, Ionut, for this great overview on continuous delivery.